Fort Dodge hopes to be a first in Iowa. Community members working to get something called a safe haven box for people who need to anonymously give up their newborn baby.
Right now, Iowa residents have to surrender their baby to someone at a healthcare facility. But lawmakers in Fort Dodge worked hard this last session to get a bill to the governor's desk allowing people to give up their baby anonymously to a place staffed 24/7 with first responders. Kayla James explains.
It was a real tragic situation. And that kind of spurred the thinking.
Thinking by Fort Dodge community members to bring an alternative solution for people who don't want their baby.
We had an unfortunate situation where a couple ended up having a baby that was not wanted.
Taylor Blaha and Brandon Thoma are the Fort Dodge couple accused of murdering their newborn baby last fall.
We still have never found the body.
A situation Fort Dodge United Way CEO Randy Kuhlman and others don't want to experience again, which is where a safe haven baby box would come in.
This provides complete anonymity for a mother that's wanting to give up their child.
This is a safe haven box made by an Indiana company. The goal is to prevent people from illegally abandoning a baby. They're placed in spaces where someone is around 24/7, like a fire department, which is where people in Fort Dodge hope to do the same.
It's right with our core mission of saving lives and helping people when they're when someone really needs help.
Chief Steve Hergenreiter says the box would have something inside to alert the team.
When someone does place an infant in there and closes the door, it sets the sensor sends off a message to our dispatchers who end here at the fire station.
And from there, they would take the baby to the hospital and surrender the baby to the Iowa Department of Health and Human Services. All of this done safely and legally.
I think when a mother gives up a child like that, it's one of the greatest acts of love that she can do.